Dr. Gulshan Rai, distinguished galaxy of personalities, ladies and gentlemen. So when Dr. Sahu does an event, he does it with maximum passion. And his ability to get all people together is phenomenal. And he asked me today to talk about the scenario as I see on the horizon. Well, the horizon looks nice, bright and shiny. But there are some gray zones. There are some specific areas that I would want to specifically focus on if I want to make India digitally secure and digital India secure in that sense of the word. Well, there's no denying the fact that the last 7 years has actually seen India phenomenally leapfrogging into becoming a digital nation. The Digital India program has been the most significant transformative program in the history of independent India. And thanks to now COVID, almost every Indian is now using data in the electronic form. Well, ask the rickshawala. The other day I was going on a lonely highway somewhere in South India and I wanted a cup of tea. And somewhere in the middle of nowhere there was just a small tea shop and he was able to offer me tea for 10 rupees and I was able to pay through UPI. Now that's something that you would not have imagined about 10 years back. But today, this is now the new ground reality. We have got lot of distinctions. We've become the most populous nation in the world, 1.4 billion people, and we have challenges. Because we are the biggest market, therefore the enclosure of all global eyes is on us. I think the Digital India program that way has, in retrospect, really prepared India to come to this catapulting position where we can actually lead the world globally as far as the entire issue of digital ecosystem is concerned. But then, why is India known globally? Apart from other things, it's also known because of our strong focus on electronic governance. The kind of governance that we have today, where the governance actually knocks you on your doorsteps, gives you an example of where and how electronic ecosystem is currently going. More and more electronic governance services are coming in thanks to the IT Act, which has now got legal sanction and validity to electronic records, which has been a great journey for the last 22 years. But then, let's realize the Parliament had no idea when they passed this law what exactly they were doing. Today in 2023, I can clearly tell you the IT Act is one of the 3 most significant legislations in Indian history. The other 2 being the Constitution of India and the Indian Penal Code. Nothing other has been more significant. Imagine anything to do with use of computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form is governed under the IT Act. Also, what I take out of the computer is a computer output, becomes electronic evidence. I can produce it in a court of law. I can record you unauthorizedly. And the Supreme Court says I can even produce that as electronic evidence as I go forward. So in this ecosystem, therefore, I'm finding that cyber criminals are distinctly working overtime to breach the cybersecurity of networks and data. Here we saw some of the important instances in recent times. Indigo says its cybersecurity incident has impacted its online orders. We see often this 500 crores, 300 crore frauds using fake Chinese apps. And these fake Chinese apps are now targeting the porous ecosystem where they want to take away data from the Indian ecosystem to China for analysis and potentially targeting India per se. The AIMS case has been a wake-up point. Even today, when I talk with you, AIMS has still not come back to normalcy. Thanks to the fact that this ransomware attack was basically an attack on the sovereignty, security and integrity of India. And we have to learn a lot of lessons from AIMS which can actually help us to make India far more secure in the digital format. Indians are losing money. On an average, this report says that the Indian firms are paying 8.2 crores for email-driven cyber attacks. Further, now we have this big problem because one of the manufacturing units connected with the Ministry of Defense, they have also been hacked by a big cyber incident. And these incidents are now slowly coming up with a pattern. The pattern is to target India, target the sovereignty, security, integrity of India. And therefore, securing digital India should become a topmost priority for all stakeholders. Everybody is under attack, whether it's any corporates, whether it's smart car manufacturers, whether it's e-commerce players, everybody is under the global focus. March 2022, it's going to be 11 months now since this ransomware attack took place on Oil India. Until today, we have not come back to normalcy, telling us why ransomware is becoming so crucial and why, if we have to secure digital India, addressing ransomware will be one of the key important priorities going forward. Imagine last year we get the latest entrant of airlines, Akasa Air, and in the first month of its operations, it suffers a data breach. Now this is the new ground reality, a new age that we'll have to wake up for. Policy Bazaar gets hit by a massive ransomware attack, a massive cyber incident, and they'll end up losing a lot of information, sensitive personal data of people per se. And then Paytm Mall says also my security stands compromised as a result of a data breach that took place. The problem is the data breaches happen everywhere. It's just as people don't want to acknowledge it, and logically so. If I was to report that I'm unsecure or my data has been unauthorizedly accessed, people will see me as a company who is unsecure. They may not want to do work with me. My reputation will suffer. My share pricing will suffer. And lo and behold, we'll have lawsuits. Like Air India has now been sued by one of the passengers who were one of the 45 lakh passengers whose data was actually released and unauthorizedly accessed by stakeholders. Today morning also it's available for sale on the darknet. Every 11 seconds last year, a company in India became a victim of a ransomware attack. This is now the new normal, and therefore much amount of cyber insurances may not necessarily help you do the best bit forward. The better thing will be the traditional approaches of backups will have to be very, very crucial as we go forward. And if that is the case, when I talk of securing digital India, one of the key components will have to be how do I come up as a nation with a policy, with an approach to deal with ransomware. Currently, I have no such policy. The law is silent. The IT Act is completely silent, and we have nothing, not even a dedicated law on cybersecurity. Now that comes as a big kind of a jolt, a drawback, as far as the Indian nation is concerned. Primarily why? Because countries like China are moving miles ahead. China in the last 6 years has come up with 3 distinctive national laws on cybersecurity. You have countries like Vietnam, Singapore, even Australia coming up with the cybersecurity laws. But I think India has still not woken up to that. So one of the key parameters that I would want for securing digital India is the need for having a dedicated law on cybersecurity, because the IT Act is not a law on cybersecurity. It does not really deal extensively with cybersecurity, though it did give a legal definition of cybersecurity and came up with some cosmetic provisions on cybersecurity. The National Cybersecurity Policy 2013, authored by Dr. Gulshan Rai, who's sitting right here, has been a great policy document and was one of the very advanced documents of those times. But unfortunately, it did not really get to be implemented. Today, it's remained a mere paper tiger, as now the government is working on a new draft national cybersecurity strategy per se. And to that extent, I think this national cybersecurity strategy will, to a large extent, determine the way how India is going to digitally secure the digital Indian ecosystem at large. Also, COVID-19 has to be acknowledged not just as a public health emergency, but also as one catalyst which has resulted into becoming a cyber pandemic. Also, it's started seeing the beginning of the golden age of cybercrime. And this golden age of cybercrime is going to be with us for the next many, many decades. Actually, during COVID-19, when fear and panic were part of our lives, I was trying to map up how things are evolving. So in this book, New Cyber World Order Post-COVID-19, I've argued that by the time the nations of the world are victorious against COVID-19, current and subsequent wave of infections, the world will enter into a new cyber age, where a new cyber world order is awaiting us. States are going to become very powerful. More significantly, cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches will become the new normal. Look at this legislation list of countries across the world, and they tell you one particular message. The message is to strengthen the hands of nation states in the fight against cyber criminals. Also, because cyber crimes have become the new default normal, you have this problem. Because you still don't know whether the legal frameworks are adequate enough. Day before yesterday, one of our clients lost 3.4 crore rupees in a span of about 7 minutes from their accounts. Now, they didn't do these unauthorized activities, but now 3.4 has gone, crores. Trying to get that back is a humongous task, and therefore the legal frameworks, I believe, have to be appropriately addressed. I think one important element that I want to highlight for digital India to be strengthened is the need for incorporating cyber resilience as an integral part of our day-to-day lives. We don't yet have adopted cyber resilience. The law is still silent on stipulating the parameters of cyber resilience per se. But the government has been very quietly doing a lot of work in the regard of regulating different aspects of the Indian cyber ecosystem. In February 2021, we came up with the IT Rules 2021, which for the first time made more accountability and transparency as the foundational factor for all intermediaries in the country. This have to be mandatorily followed by all intermediaries, and these have now also been amended by the amendment rules of October 2022. So now intermediaries shall not only inform their users that they don't do any activity in violation of the law, but more significantly, they have to now take reasonable steps to prevent their users from doing activities which are in violation of the law per se. Further, any cybersecurity incident takes place, they will now have to mandatorily report this to the nodal agency on cybersecurity, being the Computer Emergency Response Team. Further, these new amendments have brought in the element of criminal liability. If you are from the corporate sector, please tighten your belts, because now these rules are saying you could be sent to jail if you don't report a cybersecurity incident that comes to your knowledge, and you don't report it within 6 hours, you commit an offense under Section 70B of the Information Technology Act 2000, punishable with 1 year's imprisonment and fine per se. Further, these IT directions that came in the year 2022 have also now stipulated various other requirements of due diligence vis-a-vis cybersecurity that will have to be complied with by a variety of stakeholders, broadly 5, body corporates, government institutions, network service providers, data centers, and of course intermediaries per se. So the IT directions has been India's last salvo in the direction of making the digital India more secure, but yet it's not been fully implemented. Well, we saw cases being registered against Twitter, but that was the end of the matter. After that, it's relative quiet, not much action taking place, but I think it's just the lull before the storm. I think there'll be now more test cases against corporates who choose to not comply, because a lot of our clients have begun to start getting notices from authorities saying, look, your data is available for sale on the darknet. Would you want to show up and show cause why what you're doing? So this 6-hour timeline, I think, is going to be a game changer, because globally, the 6-hour timeline does not exist. The West talks of a 72-hour timeline, but India talks about 6 hours from the time you really come to know about it. Now that's very subjective. You may be breached on 1st of January 2023, you come to know about it on 10th of February 2022 at 11 o'clock, 2023 at 11 o'clock, your 6 hours really start at that point of time. So I think this invoking of criminal liability for top management is going to be a game-changing moment. It's going to put some pushback from the corporates, but it's also going to put them back on a state of getting more focused on compliances. And ultimately, in India, there's a mindset that till such time the law does not provide you with a danda force, the people would not really comply with the law. And that's the reason what these directions have come up with. So I believe the Damocles sword being hanging should be a great factor in the minds of the corporate world in order to not just report cybersecurity breaches, but also to make sure that they do take appropriate steps. You recognize that the law today morning says to all companies in India that they will have to mandatorily comply with ISO 27001 parameters as an example of reasonable security practices and procedures. Plus now, the government is now beginning to start covering elements pertaining to IoT, pertaining to artificial intelligence under the IT directions, because the cybersecurity breaches therein are also sought to be covered therein. But now, how does Digital India deal with ChatGPT? This morning, I was on ChatGPT and I was asking ChatGPT, what should India be doing in terms of protecting its cybersecurity in the future? ChatGPT had a very simple answer. It says, I'm a language program. I do not have the ability to predict the future. But based on what India has done so far, I can suggest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So clearly, if an artificial intelligence program can actually suggest a country what it needs to be doing, I think the time has come that we really need to do far beyond than what we are talking. Criminals have started using ChatGPT for coming up with new innovative mechanisms for defrauding people. Already they have now developed a new, shall I say, malware strain on the darknet, and specifically in the context of ChatGPT. Somewhere down the line, I think as I need to go forward to protect Digital India, I'm concerned about protecting the security, sovereignty, and integrity of India. I am all out for doing everything possible for protecting and preserving and enhancing and enlarging to all extent possible the cyber sovereignty of the Indian ecosystem as a whole. India has not yet worked that much in that regard. We need to learn from countries like China, who's taken thought leadership position on cyber sovereignty moving exactly forward. But ultimately, I think capacity building has to play a very, very important role. And no amount of Digital India is going to be secure if the constituents of Digital India are not appropriately sensitized about the importance or the growing significance of having not just cybersecurity as a mindset, cybersecurity as a way of life, cybersecurity as a culture, but also expecting that they have to equally contribute to the protection and preservation of cybersecurity as we actually go forward. There's a platform, cyberlawuniversity.com, where a lot of my courses are available online, including courses on cyber law, cybercrime, cybersecurity, IoT, blockchain. But you know, when these courses are actually being done by 28,500 professionals from 174 countries across the world, clearly these figures are telling us that there's a need for massive capacity building as we actually go forward. The time has really come for India to have a holistic approach. New things are emerging, new paradigms are coming in, digital twins have evolved, digital humans have come in a big way, metaverse has evolved, and I think Digital India needs to do a lot of homework as I go forward. But ultimately, Digital India will also be concerned about this massive number of devices that 1.4 billion people would be using that will be connected on the edge of the network. Therefore, concentrating on edge security should also be a major priority for Digital India as we actually go forward. Ultimately, the writing on the wall is very clear. We all are in this together. We either sink or we swim. So the better option is let's join hands together to swim, to make the cybersecurity of Digital India ecosystem far more better, far more robust, and far more resilient in the coming times. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.